Hi everyone and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to be using our custom user model to create our users. So what I'm going to do is to create serializers, and this serializer is going to help us to be able to create our users, as it's going to validate the data that we pass on to our API, as well as help us to return responses in a format that is readable by JavaScript developers. So I'm going to create the serializer file. So the first thing I'm going to do is create our serializer. So I'm going to create a serializer. We call it serializer.py. So this is going to be serializer.py. It's going to be serializer.py. And after doing this, then the first thing we're going to do is to import our user models. So I'm going to say from models, we are going to import our, actually it's going to be from dot models. We are going to import our user model. And then we're going to also import serializers from Django REST framework. So I'll say from REST framework, we need to import our serializers. And after importing our serializers, then the next thing we're going to do is to uh, go ahead and create our custom serializer. So I'll create a class which I'm going to call our user creation serializer. So this is going to be our user creation serializer. And it's going to inherit from serializers dot model serializer. So right now, this is going to be a model serializer, as it's going to use models to be able to validate and return responses. So we shall also use this same serializer to save our database objects. So what I'm going to do is to first specify the fields that you're going to use in our serializer. So go to models.py, and then within our models.py, what I'll do is to copy these different fields. So I'm going to copy them. And what I'll do is to go ahead and change them in a way that's specific to our serializers. So in this case, we're going to have most of the fields as serializer fields. In this case, what I'll do is to change this to serializers. And then actually here, I'm going to change this to dot models, because it's supposed to be dot models. Now right in here, we're also going to change our phone number field. So we're going to use the serializer field for phone number. So I'm going to say from phone number fields. So it's going to be from phone number field dot serializer fields. We are going to import our phone number field. And right after doing this, then what we're going to do is to come and specify the different attributes of these fields. Now we need to remove the unique attributes, since we are not going to make use of them and they are not part of our serializers. So what we shall say is so right now we have our phone number field, and for us to say null is equal to false, what we can do is to say allow null equals to false, and then allow blank is equal to false. And what this means is that we are not allowed to pass now to leave this as empty, as well as to submit our serializer when you're creating a user, and we leave the phone number as empty. So it's required. So what we can do is to go ahead and also provide our password. So since we're using a custom user model, we have some of the fields we define in our model, but then there are other fields that we do not have to specify. Fields such as our password. So in this case, we can also include our password as well. So I'll say is that our password is going to be equal to our serializers. So we can specify serializers, and this is going to be the chat field. And then right in here, I can say that our min length is going to be equal to 8. So we require a user to submit a password with 8 characters and above. So what we're going to do is specify our meta class. So I'm going to create a class called meta. What this class is going to have our model, and then our model is going to be the user model. And you're going to also specify the different fields that you're going to have. So you're going to be a list of fields. So this list of fields is going to have our username. It's going to have our email. It's also going to have our phone number. So we're going to also pass in our phone number. and we're going to pass in our password as well. So this is going to be our password. Now, right after doing this, then we're also going to go ahead and create our custom validations. So to do that, we override the validate method that's specific to all model serializers. So what we shall say is def, and then it's going to validate, then we shall take itself and then attributes that we're going to pass in within our serializer. So in this case, what we need to do is to check if, since these are unique, so if we check in our models.py, we have the username, the email, and the phone number being unique. So what we need is to specify that if these are submitted, we need to inform our user that these already exist. So to do that, what I'll do is to first check if the username exists. So I'll say username exists, and then we need to make a database query that will simply check if the user with the username exists. So in this case, we're going to say user dot objects and dot range filter. So we'll check if the username exists. So we shall say username is equal to, so we shall access attributes. So this is going to be attributes, and this is a dictionary of attributes. We shall be able to access the username using this syntax. And then we shall use that dot exists. So what this query does is to basically show us if an object exists, if a database object exists, and if it does not exist, then it will return false. So in this case, what we can do is to say if the user exists. So right here, we can basically raise a validation error. So Django Response serializers have the validation error that helps us to basically throw errors. So what I'll do is to raise the validation error. So I'll say serializers, but validation error. So in this case, we're going to say validation error. And then what we shall do in this case is to basically describe the details. So I'll provide the detail as, so in this case, the detail we shall say that user with username exists. Then we can do the same thing for our email and our phone number. So what I'm going to do is to copy this trace. So I'm going to copy and then paste this trace. So I'll have this and then have that. So I'm going to change this to, so going to be our email. So I also change this to our email. So I'm basically going to say it's going to be our email. Then this will be checking for the attribute of email. Then we're also going to have a user with email already exists. So in this case, we're going to say user with email already exists. So we're going to do the same thing for phone number. So what we shall do is to say it's going to be phone number exists. Phone number exists. So in this case, we're going to check for the phone number. And then what we shall do is to check if the phone number exists. So we're going to say if phone number exists, then we shall say user of that specific phone number exists. So right after doing that, we shall now return our validation. So we shall return the validation of our model serializer class. So to do that, I'm going to simply come right here and say, so we shall just return uh, super, which is the model serializer class, and then we shall call the validate method. So we need to call validate, and then we shall pass in all our attributes. So when I save this, hoping our server is still running. So what I'm going to actually do is to stop it and run it again. Our server is running. So right after that, I'm going to go ahead and create an API view that's going to be responsible for creating our users. So to do that, I'm going to go to our views.py within our authentication app. So go to views.py, and what I'll do is to first import our model. So I'm going to import our model. So I'll say from dot models, we are going to import our user model, as well as import our, as well as import our serializer. So I'll say from dot going to import our serializers. So right after doing that, we're going to come and create our API view for creating a user. So shall call this, actually let's just call it user. So I'll call it the user create view. So this is going to be our user create view. And then this is going to be a generic API view. So I also inherit from generics dot generic API view. And right after doing this, then I'm going to create a post request. So this is going to be a post, and it's going to take in a request object. Then the first thing I'll do is to specify the serializer class that you're going to use to create our users. So generic API views take in the serializer class that they use to basically validate and return responses. So to do that, I'm going to go to serializers and I'll copy the name of the serializer we created. So it's going to be our user create serializer. I'll come right here and I'll specify our serializer class going to be equal to our user creation serializer. This is going to be within our serializers. Now, after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to access the data that shall be passing to the API with the post request. So this data is got from our request object by accessing the data attribute. Now, after doing that, then the next thing we're going to do is to basically pass this data onto our serializer. So we shall say serializer is going to be equal to an instance of our serializer class. So we shall say it's going to be serializer class. And then what we shall do is to pass in our data. So our data is going to be equal to the data. Right after passing in our data, what we're going to do in this case is to basically save, check if it's valid, and then save. So to check if our serializer is valid, we shall say if serializer dot is valid. Then the next thing will be saving it. So we shall use our serializer to save the data. So we shall say serializer dot save. And if this is successful, then the next thing we're going to do is to basically return an HTTP response. So we shall return a response, and then this response is going to have the data. So the data in this case is going to be our serializer data. So we're going to say serializer dot data, and then we're going to also specify the status code. So in this case, we're going to say our status code is going to be equal to. So we imported serializer statuses. We imported statuses from Django REST framework. We need to say that this is going to be status dot http 201 created. Now, right after doing that, then we also need to return a response in case we have errors. So we shall just simply come and say return a response, and then this is going to be data. So the data in this case is going to be a serializer data. So any serializer error that you shall have will be found in serializer errors. And then right there, we shall also specify our status code. So sorry for that. Specify our status code as status dot http 400, and then this is going to be a bad request. So now after doing this, then the next thing is going to be to create a URL onto which we're going to access this view. So I'm going to save, and when I go to url.py within our authentication, I'm going to create the URL pattern for our auth route of signing up. So I'll say path, and then it's going to be on slash sign up. So if I go back to our files, right here I imported the readme.md from our finished API. So this is going to guide us onto the different routes that we're going to create. So we have the auth sign up route, which is going to register a new user. So this auth sign up route is going to be on the slash auth prefix. So if you're observant, we created our auth as well as our order prefix. So the auth prefix is going to be for all those routes specific to user creation and uh, authentication. So in this case, we're going to just create sign up, and then this is going to be views. So I'm going to go ahead and access the view. So this is going to be our user create view. So I'm going to copy it right here, and I'm going to come right here. And since this is a class-based view, then we are going to say as view. Then right in here, we can just simply come and say that this is going to be our sign up view. So when I save, hoping that everything is running, so we don't have any issues. So I'll go to my Chrome right here and I'll access the slash what slash sign up route. So this is going to basically take us to the user create route. So right now we are using Django's browsable API. So when I come, I can provide a username, for example, username of that. So let me provide one email, Gmail, home. Let's provide a number. So let's say I provided this number and I gave a password. So if I send this request, right now we see status code and I think that is in our views. So this is actually status. So I'm going to save this. And when I save and we refresh, try to continue. Now we see that our validation errors are now working. So either the username already exists. So let's say we change the username, and if we send this, so right now we still have an error. We have the username existing. So what I'm going to do is to actually customize how this error is returned to us. So right now we have 9 field errors, which you can basically set to something that you want, something that's more friendly. So to do that, I'm going to go to our settings.py file. And within our settings.py file, I'm going to create a dictionary containing most of the settings that we need to do for our Django REST framework. And instead, REST framework is going to be equal to a dictionary containing REST framework settings. So the first thing I'm going to specify is our none field errors key. And this is going to be what we see right here. So we're going to have this returning. So in this case, we're going to have non-field errors key being equal to error. So when I save this, open the R server is running. So we're going to basically post this, and right now we see that we have checked this to error. Actually, I'm going to call this error since it's a list of errors. So if I submit this, we now see that we are having our errors. So right now, let's try signing in with a user who doesn't exist. So let's say I'm going to sign in with a user called Moses. So let's say we going to sign up a user called Moses Moses 123, and then you put in another phone number that doesn't exist. So let's say 0772 567 345, and you put in a password. So if we post this, now see phone number exists. So let's see right here. That is in our serializers. So when you go to our serializers, we have phone number exists. Actually, this is supposed to be phone number exists. So when you try again, we now see that our user has been created. So in this video, we've been able to see how to create our users. We went ahead and created our user creation serializer, and we looked into how to validate our users. Thank you for watching, guys, and if you like this video, please consider liking, and please don't forget to subscribe if you're new to this channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye.